What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Now before we get into it, I do want to say that as promised in my last video, I'm going to talk about lore in this one, specifically before we get into the map itself, but I do want to apologize in advance in case I get anything inaccurate or anything wrong, so hopefully it's as accurate as possible. Let me know down in the comments below which maps you guys want me to do next, as I know Origins has been a heavily requested one for a very long time. So without further ado, let's not waste any more time and let's get into overanalyzing Origins from Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Before zombies ever walked, before the timeline even shattered, there was only one war, and that was World War I in 1918. The land was no longer a farmland or a city, it was just straight mud with endless trenches and shell craters. Now, of course, when it comes to war, nations get desperate, and every nation in this case was searching for something. Anything that could finally end that desperation and also end the war in their favor. And beneath the battlefield of northern France, something ancient answered that question. Something humanity was never meant to find, and that discovery wouldn't end the war, but it would instead ensure that it never truly ended ever again. Deep beneath the battlefield lay a material unlike anything humanity has ever encountered, which is known as Element 115. At first it seemed like a miracle, a perfect energy source to power machines and basically advanced technology overnight that would have either taken decades or centuries to figure out. But it didn't take long to realize that Element 115 didn't follow the rules of nature. Time behaved differently and gravity bent around it, and most disturbingly, it reacted to death itself. And so when soldiers died near it, Element 115 didn't bring them back normally, they brought them back as just a walking corpse. And I mean, Element 115 isn't locked away in labs, it's embedded everywhere around the map, in living spaces, underground with the generator pumps, even the giant robots we see walking around. And Element 115 isn't evil, it doesn't think, it doesn't choose violence. It amplifies what's around it, or what it's being used for. And because every nation wanted to control it, they unknowingly began to tear reality apart. To understand what Element 115 is, a secret organization was formed, and that organization was Group 935. Their main mission was to progress technology that could reshape the future. But underneath that surface, the real motivation was survival through superiority. They were racing against nations, time, and against their own limitations. Two men stood at the center of it all. Dr. Ludwig Maxis, who believed the element could be controlled through structure, discipline, and order, and of course, as we all know, Dr. Edward Richtofen, who believed the rules could be broken and pushed to their limits with this element. As we will see later when we overanalyze the map, the robots are actually named after Norse mythology Greek gods, which are Freya, Odin, and Thor. By giving the robots these names, Group 935 wasn't just building a machine, they were building gods. And not only that they were building giant robots, they also built elemental staffs, and these were originally used during the ancient Great War against the Apothicans. However, in the version seen in game in Black Ops 2, according to lore, these are just replicas constructed by Dr. Ludwig Maxis. He built them by using the ancient texts and the journal by Sir Pablo Marinus that was written in the 1300s. And if you've played Origins, then you know that each staff has a different element, which consists of fire, ice, lightning, and wind. And we'll later come to see when we overanalyze the game that the staffs have a deeper meaning to them than just a regular weapon. As the staff of ice is associated with Nikolai, the staff of fire is favorited by Takio, the staff of lightning is used by Richtofen, and lastly, the staff of wind is used by Tank Dempsey. Everyone knows these names in the Call of Duty Black Ops Zombies lore. In case you're completely new to this and don't know anything about the four characters, well, that group is actually formed in the lore of this map, and they're called the Primus Crew. By watching the trailer itself, you can already tell that the four characters have never met each other before. Now, of course, there's different reasonings why they're there. From my understanding of the lore, Takio is sent by the Emperor to investigate the Group 935 and what they're doing with the element, as Dempsey is also deployed to investigate something made by Group 935, which are the giant robots, and Nikolai was ordered to investigate potential weapons and machines used by the Group 935. And of course, Richtofen, while he was already there, performing surgery on Maxis's brains before he turned, I guess, into a zombie. And this is where the Primus crew is born. And that's really where I want to leave it for now. I know there's way more Origins lore, but for this video I want to stay focused on the face value story and the map itself. As we'll go throughout the map, we'll get deeper into lore, because trust me, there's a lot. I may not even mention a lot of it. And yes, I do know I did not mention anything about Samantha Maxis. I'm saving that for when we get into the map itself. But either way, let's get into the map, Origins. Upon spawning into the map, there's already so much to unpack. One of the first things that we notice is, of course, when spawning in, is the giant robot that crushes the ceiling. And I mean, I find it just interesting how they have a bunker built and they have it programmed for it to crush the top of the bunker, where they have a lot of research and a lot of important blueprints, as we'll get into, that is lying around here. But of course, with this map, we have our first introduction of the Wonder Fizz machine, which I didn't even really think about it before, but it is powered by Element 115. This is the most in-depth mystery box I think we've ever had in Call of Duty Black Ops Zombies, as there's a whole sort of story behind it with it, which we will get into once we get to it. One of the first things we'll notice on the wall is actually the map telling us where all the generators are, and also where all the tunnels and paths that we can take. In this, they actually called the Pack-a-Punch the ancient device of power. We can also see on the wall the staffs and all the different elements there are to it, telling us where all the different pieces are and how to upgrade them and how to build them, with one of the pieces of paper talking about Agartha and how it needs to be open and she must be released. And this is talking about Samantha Maxis, the daughter of Ludwig Maxis. We finally have our first generator upon going up the steps. There's these zombie knights that just appear randomly, and they mainly just appear when you do this generator or if you go in the crazy place. But what I find really interesting about them is that they have this whole logo around them, this ancient sort of design on them, and they glow, so they have a lot of importance to the lore. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the reasoning why these knights spawn specifically when you turn on the generators is because the Element 115 is so strong that it opens a rift to the other dimension, therefore they attack you for using their material. And next to that generator, we finally see our first piece of Element 115 stone. And what I find really cool is that it actually glows upon the objects around it. If we go up to the green one, which I found out by making this video that it exists, it doesn't have a glow effect around anything that it's around. And I mean, this is practically where they probably got the idea to make also the camo for the multiplayer, the weaponized 115. What I find really interesting about this room is, imagine if you're just sleeping in one of these beds and you have a whole ass generator going on next to you, which, just imagine being the one sleeping on these bunks and then you have this whole generator next to you that has the power to spawn in zombies that could literally just kill you in your sleep, and also the giant robot that's about to crush down on the building above you. So if anything, this building is just straight up a death trap when you really think about it, if you were the ones staying in here to do research and all that stuff. Upon going out of spawn, we can already see that there is so much going on. I mean, not only the snow, but also the plains, the clouds, the giant robots. This has a crazy environment. Out of map environments, I would say that Origins has one of the best that I've ever seen when we talk about Black Ops 2 wise. When you think about it, this map does respect the setting that it's in, keeping true to the World War I setting. So regardless if a zombie apocalypse is happening, there's still World War I going on, as that's the main plot. That's not going to stop just because they're zombies. It just adds on to it. When you think about it, it's really important to look outside of the map too, as it tells you when the giant robot is coming, and if you're at the wrong place at the wrong time, then you may get crushed. I mean, of course, there's nothing really to talk about in these trenches. I mean, it's typical war trenches that you'll see practically anywhere. Of course, we have a bunch of Group 935 boxes everywhere. I mean, there's a bunch at spawn, but they literally have labels on boxes, canisters. So the story does tell a lot about what's going on here, and that a secret group is researching whatever this blue stuff is. Now, upon entering the tank station building, there's actually quite a bit that's going on in here. First and foremost, we actually have the mystery box. From my understanding, when it comes to the lore of the mystery box, well, of course it has some sort of skull on it with a face. And correct me yet again if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's alive. When you overuse it too much, it wants to move somewhere else, and that's why they have these platforms as we see that the mystery box is on to transport it to the different places. And I'm assuming it's not when the mystery box is tired of your shenanigans and it moves, but also if the soldiers wanted to have a go at it, they could just transport to somewhere else in the trenches where they can use it. And I'm assuming it's yet again the same sort of principle with the generators, how it appeared with the use of element 115. It created a rift, and thus that's what it does when it disappears. They've got this element just laying around everywhere on this map. What I really find interesting about a lot of these rooms that we'll see when we go through the map is that they have a bunch of this element laying around, and of course it's kind of the theme of the map. But when we look at it from that impracticality of, this stuff will turn you into a goddamn zombie or something weird. And so I don't know if I would want this stuff just laying around near me. But again, I find it quite interesting that the robots do walk on top of these bunkers that are said to be research stations or workshops or tank stations. But when you really think about it and you look on top of where the giant robots are stepping, it seems like this is something that's happened over time, as the amount of times that they've walked on top of this area, ground got more shallow, and it got to the point where, of course, it reached to inside of this building. We could just see that it's completely unleveled and such, and it seems like it has a purpose, sort of like a purpose and that purpose is where the robots can walk on top of and crush. Compared to the spawn room where it just seems like there's no designated path for it, it just crushes it because it wants to. And just based off the sign here too that's next to it, it does tell the robot definitely walks on top of this. Now entering the workshop, it's kind of the same thing as the last building. There's not too many details when we really think about it, because of course there's element 115 sitting around. It's just a standardized sort of bunker with a lot of research. Some people slept with the element under them, which I find quite interesting. This workshop has a ton of it everywhere. I would assume because it's called the workshop, they do a lot of work on it in this specific building, but it just seems like it's a storage place for it. Doesn't seem there's any sort of studying or anything really going on with it. Now we're getting into the good stuff. Of course, I think one of the most important pieces of this map is the middle where Pack-a-Punch is. Now, out of all the Pack-a-Punch machines we've had in Call of Duty Zombies before, up to Black Ops 2, of course, this has the most in-depth lore, and the reason why I say that is because, we see a whole bunch of element 115 hooked onto cords with also the generator electricity hooked onto them as well, with a whole ring specifically designed to be in the center of both the Pack-a-Punch machine and also the storm above, which is pretty interesting. So it has a whole entire purpose to it, and it seems like they've been trying to activate this machine. It's incredible the amount of details I find that went into this whole entire area. Even the ground has all these patterns showing it's also an entrance to, of course, a different sort of place. This is where they have the staffs, and interestingly enough that the ancient statues have R4 characters on them. It basically tells you that this map isn't just a coincidence, it's literally meant to be. Their faces are on these stones. Now, if you didn't know, this entire room is basically a staff room where you upgrade them. That's where these blue hoops are supposed to represent, is for you to upgrade it. It really messes up your head if you're really deep into lore, finding out that the 4 characters actually have a deeper meaning to this map than just a random zombies map where they just so happen to coincidentally just appear here. Treyarch in 2012 to 13 was moving different. But continuing on, we obviously have the church where when you first show up to it, under it, it has that iconic tank that we know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not think that this is actually powered by element 115. It could be. I don't see anything where it hints at it. It looks like it's normal fuel. We literally have the thrusters shooting out fire. And looking at a lot of the things in this map, it kind of gives me a vibe of steampunk. And of course, I'm not the only one to have said this, because that was awesome. Also mentioned this in this video, which helped me understand, of course, Origins a little bit better when making this video. When we really look at it, is this place stable enough to hold up a church? We have a literal log, a thin piece of log holding up a corner of the building, and for some reason it's able to stand up straight. Of course, it has all these giant beams under it. Yeah, I get there's a zombie apocalypse and it doesn't really have any use for it anymore, but this thing is going to collapse eventually, and for it to have a research station sort of thing under it, a little dangerous as well. But hey, this map is full of dangers everywhere, so I don't think it's a really big deal. Now, going back to the robots and their paths that they sort of take, when we really look at it, It tells us a lot where they step at times. Of course, we have a bunch of dead bodies around it. You can clearly see the footprint of the robot having that little thing in the middle where, of course, because it's the middle of his foot, there's not that much pressure being put down on it, which gives it this little bump. But of course, at some of them, they have a bunch of dead bodies. And I don't think that these are zombies. That little bump is not that big of a deal, but when you really look at it, for example, this path that one of them takes, these are failed tests of people trying to get into the foot. As we know that the robots are definitely powered by element 115, that one of the ways to enter it while it's walking is, of course, going through the middle of the foot. And this is the amount of people that failed to either get in or were experiments of trying to get in, which is a pretty interesting detail I feel like no one has ever really talked about before. I mean, considering that there are like 2 dead bodies around it, the majority of them are in the middle. I mean, this goes for some of the other ones too. Same thing in the middle, we could see the foot walks on top of, and there's a ton of dead bodies on it, considering there's basically none around it other than that middle part. Now, what's really cool too about these generators is it actually powers not only the main power that we know of in the Pack-a-Punch, but also what's around it. So for example, if you haven't completed all of them, but you do need some perks, no worries, come to Generator 5 where you can get stamina up and of course a random perk from the Wonder Fizz. You cannot forget to mention one of the most important parts, which are the entrances to the crazy place. Now these are just tunnels underground bringing you to the area to get in, and of course if we go through it, it doesn't actually bring you there because, well, it's at another place which we'll look at. But what I find pretty cool too is beyond this sort of wall, we actually see a bunch of skulls and dead bodies. I don't know if this has any lore purposes. I'm assuming it's part of the ancient times where they used to do rituals and stuff, which would definitely make sense with the COD Zombies lore, honestly. Now, I'm not sure why there's these speakers pointing towards the crazy place entrance. From what I could understand, it may be a way to communicate to what's on the other side, potentially. I don't know, I could be wrong. Let me know what you guys think down below. I mean, it's basically the same principle as well on the other side of the map, just a few speakers pointing towards that wall. Same goes for near the church as well. Now, there's still a lot to uncover in this map, but I do want to focus a little bit more on places that we can't go to or can't really see, so more out of bounds while still being able to somewhat see what's going on, but at the same time not. I mean, for example, we have this tank that's quite visible in game, but you can't get to it, which I find pretty interesting, as there's a few other of these tanks laying around the map that is either exploded or destroyed. I could assume maybe what's going on top of us, the planes, but also the giant robots. Next to the church, we see a ton of these tanks just kind of exploded all around. Air missiles probably dropped on top of them. I mean, it would make sense. I mean, there's literally a plane crash next to it. And I mean, just by going outside of the map, there's a ton of just these broken houses all over the place. Like, this place is just a deserted of human-made destruction. And even if there wasn't a zombie apocalypse, you would not be safe in this area. You have these giant robots and planes and just a whole bunch of explosions, guns, and this weird storm going on that's shooting random lightning bolts down below. Specifically, of course, at the generators, but you get what I mean. Quite literally just a danger fest. Also, a pretty cool fact is, if you look at where the robot's about to stomp, you can see red lights flashing, meaning that, of course, they know that it's about to happen and that it's giving you a warning before it does. Now, if you watched my Black Ops 2 iceberg video, then you may remember that I did mention that Origins was actually supposed to be a larger map. There's nothing confirmed about any of this around the map itself. I mean, I would say that they cut a lot of things that's around it, but there's a few signs that do tell us that there could have been something. Now, of course, this is just based off of my own speculation and based off my own review of the map, so take this with a grain of salt. If we go back to the spawn area, there's actually a door on the side here that leads to sort of like a random bunker on the side and then invisible door frame. This could have been a different pathway to take based off of spawn, where zombies could potentially just jump down or jump over. It has that rendered in effect where it seems like it could have been something but was cut last minute. Same thing with this trench as well down below, as it shows a whole pathway, but of course it could be just for spawn purposes, where it gives a little bit of detail on the outside. And if you didn't notice, I did turn off the fog, so of course it's a lot easier to see in that open field. Another thing too near the generator 5 is actually this random square here, where I do think that this was supposed to be part of the map, but they just cut it off. Is if we go under it, it's a fully rendered in box. And I mean, of course, It says literally nothing, but it does seem like it was supposed to be something. I mean, there's legitimately sort of like a wooden walkway beginning to it, and then they kind of just cut that out. And I mean, there's things even around it. I mean, it's kind of random, of course, and could have been a pathway for where the robot just crushes the ground like we see in the buildings that there are, where the ceiling is kind of caved in. Now, I think a really cool part that we'll finally get to look at is, of course, inside the robot. And if we go inside the head, well, there's, oh shit, nothing. In case you did not know, you can't actually enter from the one actually moving around. And if we go under the map, we can actually see that they're actually all next to each other. And of course, it has the different pieces for the staffs in each head. Yet again, another map of where the generators are, and also it shows the tubes that people can travel, which is of course up to 4, but also now we can officially confirm that element 115 is being used for these because, well, these blue tubes, the same ones used for the generators. In case you haven't noticed, it does say the names of each robot, which I do want to get into. Starting with Freya, her main qualities are the goddess of love, fertility, beauty, wealth, and also war and death. As Thor, the god of thunder, he aligns with strength, lightning, and protection of humanity. And lastly, Odin, his main role is a supreme god of wisdom, war, poetry, and death. Combining these 3 names together, they all have something in common where they cause war, death, but also protection, meaning that these robots are protecting something. We know this as they're specifically designed to patrol the dig site and eliminate any threat trying to go near it, and they also cause death and, of course, war. Of course, they are also seen as gods. And before I forget, also this robot down here doesn't have a name specifically tied to it, so we're not really sure what its name is supposed to be tied to, as they only mentioned 3 robots, but it is still interesting to see a robot down on the map to just give it a little bit more context. Who knows what brought it down? Now, continuing under the map, I found this random black sort of box. I mean, there's nothing really in it or to it. Just find it pretty interesting that there's something random under this map. Also under the map, there's just a random plane that's not broken down that has a propeller sort of supposed to be flying, but it's just kind of staying still under the map. But one of the main things under this map that is pretty important to the game is, of course, the crazy place itself. And just by looking at it with nothing really going on, it's pretty cool to see. I mean, it has those hexagon shapes, the same ones from Halo Infinite. I know, L reference. It has a bunch of just element 115. And of course, we have the puzzles to do, the staffs and all that. But by looking at each respected side, if we start with the ice, of course, we see sort of that ice effect like a cooler go down these steps, and it looks like the puzzle's made out of some sort of ice block. We can already tell there's a bunch of electricity shocks being sent everywhere, but its main color is focused on purple. It has these random sort of triangles just sending out that electricity power. For the fire staff, which is personally for me my favorite design, we have that hot steam effect coming out of the floors. There's lava under this ground. There's just a ring of fire where you would get the staff. I don't know, it has a lot of aura when you think about it. It makes it more accomplishing to me. This one's pretty cool too. I mean, it just has sort of particles and dust flying around it. Instead of it going down the steps, the effect going down the steps is going like the ice. It's going on top of the steps, pulling everything and vacuuming anything that may be around it. I mean, this is probably one of my favorite rooms in this entire map just because it moves around. There's quests behind it. The night zombies that spawn, which changes up the scenery, and just overall all the effects that go around, and it makes all the while worth it while you're doing a puzzle, chasing to finish that while you're being chased by zombies, which makes it so much more satisfying in the end. If you've ever watched any of my previous overanalyzing videos, you know one of the biggest things that I critique is what's going on outside of the map. As I mentioned at the beginning, Origins does that perfectly. I mean, it has a whole battle going on with these planes. This is an old game, and I'm not expecting every plane to crash. For example, if we just follow this one that got shot for a little while, you could tell the smoke disappears like nothing ever happened, and then when it gets to a certain point all over again, that smoke reappears. And this is not something you'll just notice while playing. I mean, you're focused on surviving and not being downed by zombies, so you don't notice those little things that go on during the game. But it's still cool to see that there's a bunch of stuff going on. Not only the fire coming out of the different corners of the map, but also the guns and the mortars being shot up, and of course that giant blimp that flies over. And I mean, unfortunately we can't really see anything, as of course when we go through it there's nothing more that appear sort of around the map outside, far away from where the map is itself. Of course, one of the most captivating things is this just giant storm that's of course above the Pack-a-Punch like mentioned before. Huge flashbang sort of power, but to me this just looks like a giant eyeball when you really look at it. But also with that snow, it just adds on to that whole vibe of the map. Also throughout the map, there is actually 6 different audio recordings, and upon hearing them, we get to know and we get to learn a little bit about what's going on and what are the things that are around us.
The ancient texts describe an artifact known to them as the amplification rod. It is my firm belief this item is instrumental to harnessing the energy of the elemental stones. Unfortunately, neither the rod nor the stones have been recovered from any of our dig sites. I feel we must push forward regardless. As such, I have drawn up plans to create replica rods based on the descriptions from the main chamber. I will instruct Richtofen to begin fabrication immediately. Researching element 115 continues to yield unforeseen results. The conversion process creates localized energy fields, which appear to function as portals, bringing forth objects of indeterminate origin. It is my hypothesis, however outlandish, that this transfer of matter may actually be occurring through space and time. I believe the answer may lay with the broken rune stones located at the mound. Perhaps channeling sufficient energy from the conversion generators to their location may prove fruitful. It is by chance of fate alone that we unlocked the seal to the main chamber. Repeated efforts to use brute force proved ineffective and left the men exhausted and frustrated. In an effort to alleviate the tension, one of the soldiers brought a gramophone to the chamber, along with a recording by a group of performers known as La Source Noire. To our astonishment, as we listened to the first few bars of music, the seal itself began to open. I cannot help but wonder if other such recordings may similarly reveal other areas of the catacomb. When 115 is channeled towards the ancient stones, an energy field appears to drag unknown objects into our reality. Is it possible that element 115 is disrupting the space-time continuum itself? How else could an ancient box, created eons ago, bring forth weapons from different eras, perhaps including even our own future? Further study is needed to understand these powerful and unpredictable forces. When I awoke this morning, I learned of mysterious events that took place during the night. Men working on the installation of the generators reported seeing ancient figures emerging from the mound. I would doubt their story, but for the fact that by morning, many of the men were either dead or missing. The child's voice calls to me more frequently than ever. At first, she spoke only of her imprisonment in a mythical realm known as Agartha. Now she claims to be my daughter, even though I know no such child exists. I fear my sanity may be slipping away from me.
As previously mentioned in the video, Origins was supposed to be a little bit different than what we have today. I mean, we do have pre-alpha footage, which I'll get into that a little bit more in another video that I have planning coming up. Where I really want to draw the attention to is, of course, this concept art of the original plan for Origins. And I mean, just by looking at it, the map looks completely different. There's different storms going on in the background, making it seem like there's other things or other ancient devices. There's a complete city, along with less trenches and more about a town setting rather than a war-bounded trenches. By taking a look at the blimps, they even have a different design on it, which says Led Zeppelin on it, which is a pretty niche little detail that I haven't really seen anyone talk about. But also the early concept of the giant robot too. It really begs you to ask the question what this map would have been like, a lot bigger and a lot more different. As I also mentioned at the beginning of the video, I did not forget about Samantha Maxis. Now there's a ton of quotes, and some of you may be okay with listening about close to 50 minutes worth of it, and some of you may not. So I decided to just kind of summarize of what's going on, because of course the story is being told visually, but also really importantly by audio, which is super important to keep in mind when playing this map. So at first, Samantha sounds scared and and vulnerable, begging the 4 characters to hurry and follow the ancient riddles to use the elemental staffs to release the trapped souls so the gateway to Agartha can open and free her. She constantly mentions her father's failed attempts, making the characters feel like they are the only ones who can save her. But as the steps are completed, her tone kind of shifts. She becomes a little bit more impatient, demanding, and at times threatening. She starts warning the characters that eternal punishment would happen if they were to disobey her orders. She also manipulates each member in a personal way. She promises Nikolai a future without pain or war. She appeals to Takio's sense of honor and Bushido, also Dempsey's need to be the hero who ends this entire nightmare. And lastly, she pressures Richtofen by reminding him that this cycle needs to be completed. And so by the end, it's clear that Samantha is no more a trapped child asking for help, but a powerful being shaped by Agartha, setting up the larger conflict of the zombie storyline and showing that freeing her comes at a much greater cost than the 4 heroes ever even realized. Either way, I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and I do yet again want to apologize if I missed anything or didn't talk about anything. It is a lot when it comes to zombies and zombies lore, so of course leave a comment down below if you think I should have talked about something else, or also what kind of map you guys want to see me do next. But either way, I don't want to ramble too much. I do hope you guys did enjoy the video, and just remember to stay smart.